Okay, so this is going to be a very interesting review. I had recorded a review for last week's chapter. I never got around to posting it, so I'm going to combine that review along with a review for this week's chapter and really dive into the madness, the chaos, the tragedy. Well, he won't describe it that way, but just the insanity that is Tomura Shigaraki or Tenko Shimura, whatever you want to call him, bro. That dude with the hands all over, because shit's getting crazy, and I know people are gonna condemn me. You don't know Shigaraki's name. I'm calling him Shigaraki. Let's jump into it, baby. I'm hype. My Hero Academia, it's really taking a turn for the best. Whether Facebook, Twitter, or the two, make sure to steer clear, cause I'm coming through like... So I've read some crazy stuff in my day, but I gotta say that easily My Hero Academia chapter, I want to say 236, the part 2 or the sequel chapter to Shigaraki's past and what happened to his family and how he kind of manifested his quirk, how it happened and everything. Easily one of the creepiest, one of the darkest, one of the most tragic, messed up shonen moments ever that I've read. Because I've read some stuff, but man, Shigaraki's past, it really makes you look at the League of Villains and all of them in a very different light, but especially the man himself. This chapter in particular, if you take away the elements of what it is, right? You take away the superhero, all of that stuff, you take away the superpowers or whatever, it is a testament to a lot of, especially what's going on in Japan right now and what's been going on for a very long time over there. It really showcases and puts a microscope on how much pressure, and I guess not even in Japan, you think about it, just around the world, how much pressure and, you know, just having people on you and people mistreating you can really make a character go like batshit crazy. But especially for a young boy, because Shigaraki, easily one of the most disturbed kids I've ever seen in shonen manga. I mean, this past, this backstory, getting it blown wide open with the last chapter and then again the latest one, it showcases honestly that this kid was under some crazy shit. And not only that, it showcases that having people on top of you constantly criticizing you, not allowing you to live your dreams, can be the darkest manifestation in a sense. Because Shigaraki, while he was going through all of this trauma that his father brought upon him, he constantly was just like, yo, I just want to be a superhero. I just want to dream. I just want to be, you know, whatever. But deep in the recesses of him began resentment. He started resenting his father for what he put him through. He started resenting his grandparents for not sticking up for him. He started resenting his mom for not sticking up for him. He resented his sister. And I think this is all again in the back of his mind for a while. Not just these chapters. His sister for, you know, turning him in essentially with his father after saying, yeah, let's make a pact or whatever. I think there was a lot in there that finally after this kid being pushed to the limit of like, yo, I can't live. And that's what manifested with this chapter. And holy cow, again, I just gotta say, like, if you are for the weak of heart, you can't do none of this, then I highly recommend maybe you don't want to read this chapter per se, because it's graphic, it's dark, it's messed up. Yeah, it's traumatizing. So first it starts off again, Shigaraki accidentally kills the dog, which it's sad whenever they kill an animal. Like, don't get me wrong, it's way more tragic what happens after that, but it starts off with like man's best friend, bam. And it was, you know, on accident. When you get into dialogue, it really makes you wonder. Like, I think at this point, while Shigaraki's still trying to figure it out, and maybe you could argue that he came to a self-realization when he says certain things in the chapter, because he's like, you know, at first he tries to cover himself up and say, oh, I didn't know what was going on, I thought it was a villain, and then he corrects himself and say, nah, I think deep down I kind of knew all along. I don't know. I mean, you could argue that that's self-discovery or whatever, but I don't think when you're looking at the chapter, like when he's hugging his dog and crying and the dog dies, I don't think he wanted to. I think out of everyone in there, the one that was in particular like on purpose was towards the end, and we'll get to that. But I don't think with the dog or his mom or his sister, even if he had some sort of resentment against all of his family, I think there was only one family member that he really truly resented to do anything towards, because he didn't look like he was like, yeah, this is what I wanted. And I think a lot of this is also, if you think about it, it's in combination with the manipulation that has happened up to this point. Because remember, after this, of course, and you know, as Shigaraki's narrating this flashback, it's essentially from the perspective of somebody that's already been manipulated by All For One. Let's just say he had a positive mentor he wouldn't have allowed Shigaraki to have those thoughts of like, yeah, I wanted this. Yeah, this is what I did, because he was an innocent kid. He was bullied. He was traumatized. His father, because essentially his father was abandoned by his mother, Nana, the original, or one of the predecessors to One for All. He was abandoned, so he took out his frustrations and wanted to make sure that his son didn't have to go through those things. But still, the way he went about it, it shows that it was traumatic. The thing about his voice not being able to work so he could explain the situation was a little weird. I don't know if it's just that he didn't want to and subconsciously it stopped him. I don't know what was going on. If maybe All For One was the one behind all this, wrangling it up in a sense, and he really didn't do these things, because you just never know. He could have been manipulating the situation from the jump. Remember, he wanted his revenge. So if he's going to want revenge, he's going to do anything possible. And potentially he could have been the one that stringed all of this up, and maybe Shigaraki only finally let loose again with the final person after just seeing all the carnage, because then after the dog, I believe it was his sister, and when she shows up, he's not even on that. He's like, he can't explain it to her. He's like, my voice, and then she freaks out and he's asking for help. And it kind of also, if you look at it metaphorically, it showcases something very sad about life, and that's that sometimes when you need people, they can't help you. Sometimes even the people closest to you, when you really need them and you're in a messed up situation, they can't really help. His sister, she couldn't really do nothing, and on top of that, then he brought her down. He killed her, so the dog, first victim. And I'll still say, despite what Shigaraki says, that maybe this is what I truly was wanting all along, I don't buy it. I think there's too much manipulation at this point where Shigaraki is. Don't get me wrong. He is finding his purpose. He is understanding that, I just want to kill. I just want to destroy. So there's that aspect of it. But I think, again, there's too much manipulation and too many things that has happened up until this point for him to, in retrospect, say what a little kid that was freaked out and just wanted to be a hero and just wanted to be loved and appreciated by his family is going to be thinking like, yeah, I wanted to kill my... No, I don't buy it. And that's one of the cool things, I guess, about My Hero Academia is the self-discovery of the villain side, because I'll be the first one to say that when the League of Villains started up, minus Nomu, like, the first arc or whatever, they were trash. Like, you look at it like, these are the big villains of the series. They weren't much. They were very unprepared. Shigaraki wasn't a good leader by far. And to see where he's at now, there's definitely been a lot of change, and it showcases the growth of the villain side, and that's why I still stand by this arc is one of the strongest arcs of My Hero Academia, and why I say I prefer when we focus in on the villains. I'm not a fan at all, especially as many times as we've gotten it. I'm not a fan of, another training exam with the good guys, when we got like really crazy, shocking, oh my gosh, what's going on moments with the villain side. Like, I just don't really... it's not to knock the hero side, but I think we've had too many of those instances that this just feels like a breath of fresh air for the series, for better or worse. And it's a tragic moment. Again, I got to keep saying it. Then when he, turned his focus on his grandparents, I think as it kept going, you could argue maybe his anger, and there was malice potentially as it kept going. I don't think there was malice with the dog at all. That was an accident. I don't think with the sister there was malice that much either. I think the grandparents and his mom... Not even his mom. I wouldn't even say with the mom, because with the mom, he was there desperately trying to hug her and trying to get to her while all this is going on. You could argue maybe with the grandparents, the fact that they constantly never defended him or whatever. But even then, I don't know. It's hard. And that's what makes this a really awesome chapter. That it's hard for me to pinpoint what Shigaraki, he's narrating, he's giving his perspective of what he feels it was now. But even then, think about it. Shigaraki's only like Deku's age. He's not like a grown-ass man that's looking at this in retrospect. 10, 20 years from now, Shigaraki might think totally different and call himself a fool for believing that this was his ideal. So I still got to stick with that. But man, then he focuses in on the grandparents and his mom, and you see the quirk mutating at that point and him losing his mind. I ain't gonna lie with the mom one, because I love my mom to death. I'm very, very close with my mom, and seeing that, it's hard for me to even talk about it, because it's a little kid that he doesn't understand what's going on, what's happening with himself, and it's just tragic. And then the father, again, he himself was traumatized. The fact that his mother basically gave up her life and chose being a hero over being his mother, which you got to look at it in retrospect. If she didn't do what she did, then maybe nobody would have a quality life, because at that time, there was a lot of things going on in the world. She needed to be a hero. So his resentment, I understand, okay, you wanted your mom to be there for you. He wanted Nana to not do those things and go out there and be a hero. And then, of course, it cost her life. And he looks at it as, being a hero, no, there's too much of a high cost. Your kids will never have a life. You will lose your life. So he was, in a sense, acting off of protecting his kids, but in a very wrong way, because he was abusive. It got to a point where it was just like, whoa, what's going on? And when Shigaraki lunges towards his father, that's when you know that, oh, yeah, this one he wanted. And he even admits that, and I'll agree with him on that one, because he lunged at him and put his hand on his father's face while the father's trying to fight him off with a stick. Like, yo, honestly, he was misguided, so I'll give him that, but Shigaraki's father, a piece of garbage. Like, you know, out of everybody, he's the one that's still like, yo, you caused your son, you pushed your son to that wall, to that brink of like wanting to commit these atrocities. Now you should stand up and face the music. So when he's just there like with the mop, trying to go crazy, trying to fight him off and shit, or whatever the hell it was, I'm like, you created this monster. It's your fault. So, not that it's, of course, right to do any of what Shigaraki did, but you can see that that was the one where it was like, you were my tormentor, you bullied me, you did this to me, and Shigaraki at that point turned into a killer. I think all the other ones was a lost little kid. A lost little kid that was angry at the world but wasn't taking it out on these people. With the father, it was like, enough is enough, motherfucker. And I ain't gonna lie, it was one of the most disturbing lines when he said he felt the most pleasure feeling spread through his body. I'm like, oh God, Shigaraki, you are one twisted motherfucker nowadays. Like, to have that and then the look on his face at the end. Ugh. And then he also said that deep within his heart, he always wanted something like this to happen, and that the itch finally went away. Now, I think deep down inside of himself, again, this is a corrupted kid. You got to keep in mind how old Shigaraki is now, and he's still trying to find his purpose. I think deep down, he just wanted to be free. He just wanted to free himself from his father's rules, free himself from the mental abuse of his father constantly, and even, you know, physically, like everything that Shigaraki's father did to him. He just wanted to be free. I don't think he wanted to commit murder and kill his entire family and slaughter them in cold blood. I don't think that that's what he wanted at all. Again, he doesn't understand it. But when he said the itch finally went away, you could argue, okay, that was metaphoric for the itch to kill, the wanting to kill, or you could argue that the itch of finally extracting revenge, because I don't know, maybe I'm holding on tightly as my own, you know, me, that like, it just can't be that he was just this much of a fucked up kid to be able to want to murder his entire family. The father, you got motive there. Like, yo, his father was a piece of garbage. He treated him bad. He abused him and everything like that. He oppressed him. And even the father, you got to look, there's reasoning behind everyone's actions in this. The grandparents and the mother were just trying to abide by the father. But even with the father doing those things, you could tell he was ruining his whole family. You know what I'm saying? Like, how are you treating your family this way when you wanted, even from the jump, to live a good life? Your whole purpose was trying to make sure that your family doesn't suffer, and in the process, you made them suffer and turned your kid into a psychotic murderer. Very, very dark stuff. Honestly, the darkest chapter of this series, hands down, and I would argue one of the darkest chapters of any manga in Shonen Jump history. It's one of them. Top 10, no doubt, because I've seen some stuff in Shonen Jump, and don't get me wrong, back in the old days, Fist of the North Star would obliterate people with fists, and they would pop and whatever, but the very, very isolated feeling of this, the very dark, that this is his family, this is a little kid and his family, that he massacred them. It's like on some Michael Myers type of shit. I'm still bugged out that they actually put this shit in Shonen Jump. But it also further proves that this series benefits so greatly when we focus on the villains. Every time Shigaraki and the League of Villains show up, the series gets interesting, it gets insightful, it gets exciting, and in this case in particular, it gets really fucking dark and depressing. Like, that was just, whoa, a little bit too much for me to bear, but I totally see why it had to be done. It gave Shigaraki a little more, or it gave us a little more insight into Shigaraki and why he is what he is, and character development in a very dark way that he now knows his purpose. He just wants to destroy and kill. And it stems from mental abuse and trauma from his father, but nevertheless, really dark stuff. Kind of curious what you guys thought about all of this regarding Shigaraki and this chapter of My Hero Academia. Do you feel as though he genuinely knew what he was doing, knew that he wanted to do this to all of his family members, none of them, or maybe just the father? Like, to be honest with you, I'm sticking with the dog was 100% an accident. He had no idea. The sister, he was begging her for help. Grandparents, maybe he was bitter towards them and his mom for not defending him, but especially the mom. That was just so sad and tragic. I don't think that was on purpose either. The father, though, when he palms his face and everything, there's no doubt in my mind that he wanted to extract some revenge of, you turned me into this monster. And your overall thoughts of this, like, were you freaked out? I'm gonna lie, I'm still shocked. Like, My Hero Academia getting this dark? What's going on? But it happened. Poor Shigaraki's family. It's just a really messed up and deranged situation all the way around. Like, wow. So after slaughtering and murdering his entire family, Shigaraki runs away. And honestly, this chapter once again cements something that I've been thinking for a long time. Despite who Shigaraki may be right now, and don't get me wrong, I think we're past with this character in particular. Like, there's some characters that you could say, yeah, there'll be some redemption in his future. I think that this dude is past that point. I don't think that there's much redemption for this dude because he's so warped. I don't think we're going to have an Obito Uchiha change of heart situation with him. I mean, we might be able to. I don't know. I think it would be horrible, to be honest with you, because this dude, he has been to the point brainwashed and manipulated to, he is a full-blown psychotic murderer. Okay, there's no, in my opinion, I don't see Shigaraki turning a new leaf. Like, the fact that he's found his resolution in nothing but carnage, mayhem, and chaos, I don't think Shigaraki is going to be changing his mind anytime soon, let alone the fact that the narrative is going to allow for it to feel like, hey, you know, at most, he might be able to do a good deed at the very end, you know, in a fight against All For One, a final battle or whatever, but I don't see him ever saying like, yeah, I did that for me. He might do it again out of his own hatred, which it's going to make for an interesting character. If he does anything that will be considered for the good side, it will never be because he wants to be good, I think. I think at this point he has accepted just how much of a piece of garbage he really is, or how he feels at the very least, because I still would argue that this is a guy that from jump, you know, he was manipulated and tricked into this. And this chapter cemented even more. All For One really molded this guy into being the psychotic, serial killing murderer that he is. That, as well as the disappointment of society letting him down. And that's a real shame because it's a very, very accurate depiction and description of what society is today. Like, if you really look at it, when Shigaraki's running into the crowd and he keeps on, and, you know, these people, because they're freaked out of him, they're like, oh, well, maybe somebody will help him. And that's where we as people sometimes, and, you know, maybe this is diving a little bit off the manga, but we as people, you have the power, if you see an injustice, to really right a wrong. And I feel as though I wish people would more incorporate that into their lives and stop thinking, well, somebody's going to do it. No, that somebody can be you. So looking at the way Shigaraki, that he was let down. Like, I think everyone in his life let him down, from his parents, his sister, his grandparents, you know, just society in general, all those people that were in the crowd that he's like, yo, I am traumatized. I just murdered my whole family. And they're just like, whatever. Okay, somebody will help him. And that's really one of the big things as well that made Shigaraki, if you look at it, everyone in his life, everything in life let this kid down. The system failed him. Everything failed him. And honestly, it broke my heart when he said maybe that was punishment for him. You know, he thought, maybe this is punishment for what I did to my family or whatever. But I will stick to through and through that, yo, he didn't know what he was really doing. He didn't know what he wanted. And then this chapter even further shows that he didn't really know. It was more so like, and the newfound perspective that he has, yes, he is a monster because he gets a sick thrill out of it at the same time. But at the same time, he still was manipulated. Because we see, of course, All For One was the one that put out his hand to help him. And then we see All For One in that Dr. Robotnik looking dude from you know, this arc that he was the one that got Giganto Machia or whatever. And you see, even with him, the manipulation was just so deep. Him telling him, the itchiness is because you can't, you know, your urges are overflowing and you can't handle and stuff like that. Maybe that could be the case, but it was just manipulation on top of manipulation. I think that this was a very thorough and set out plan. I wouldn't be surprised if that wasn't even initially Shigaraki's quirk. And this is where maybe my crazy theories come in, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of those cases where All For One had this pegged from the jump. He knew that this was Nana's grandson. Maybe he gave him that quirk at that time and it was just, he happened to do it. I think we are going to get some major revelations regarding that. Tomura just doesn't know how manipulated he was, because on top of that, he even lost his memories. Maybe if he had all these memories all this time, he would have been able to think his way through. But as a little kid, shortly after, he lost his memories. So how is he going to be able to really analyze the situation that he's in, what's happened to him, and how his life has gotten to the point of being a psycho? And then it doesn't help, too, that shortly after he massacres his family and is screaming for help or, you know, seeking help, then a couple of thugs come and beat him up and rob him. So it just really looks like this dude had a horrible life, and society, his family, and everything above just shaped him again into this, on top of the fact that, which you think about it, Shigaraki, it took a lot to turn him into this, because even after everything, he still, like, the thugs jumped him, And he was still like, man, I want to kill them, but I don't know. It took a lot. This guy probably could have been one of the best heroes of all time if you think about it. Like, this guy, his family let him down. His father was abusive to him. He was jumped. He was treated like shit, society. And it took all of that on top of All For One, this master manipulator, to really turn him into the crazy that he is today. So honestly, Shigaraki probably had and has underneath all of the psychoness. I know it's probably like, what? He probably does have a heart of gold under it all. It's just that he has been so let down and so manipulated, and it took all of that to turn him into the monster that he is today. And that's really society, and that's an argument for a lot of people, that they could be the greatest person in the world, but how much can a person take? I mean, if you think about it, a little kid that just accidentally murdered his whole family, and you asking him, hey, so what do you want to do about the thugs that just jumped you? Like, what? I wish Shigaraki would be able to at least see that. I wish if he did have another encounter with All For One, he realizes, you tricked me into a lot of this shit. I mean, if he comes to a realization, yo, I do know that this is what I want right now, kudos to him or whatever, but I would love for him to confront All For One at some given point and say, you made me more nuts. And the chapter describes of how All For One kept on trying to push, like, yo, you always should have these hands on you at all time. No, like, you sick motherfucker. Like, looking at it, he had no chance. He had no chance. That's what he had. Yeah, Vince McMahon reference for all two of you that watch wrestling out there. I mean, you think about it. He wanted to make sure that this kid, like, that's why I'm looking more and more like, again, Shigaraki, because he was the offspring or the grandson of Nana, he probably could have been an incredible hero. I mean, if you think about it, he had the passion to be a hero. And even then, it was that All For One had to tell him, yes, keep those things on you at all times so those feelings never fade, because he possibly knew this kid would have been an incredible threat to him. Maybe that's why he targeted him so much, because he knew that this kid could be special. And maybe, again, the quirk that he would have had might not have been that quirk. Maybe this could all be 100% from top to bottom, from the time that he killed his parents till now, manipulation from All For One. I will say him losing his memories. I mean, it does make sense, the trauma of a little kid going through all that and kind of just being locked in his subconscious. So, like, even though he didn't remember the thugs, subconsciously he did, and he was able to go in again on a killing spree. I don't know. My Hero Academia, this is hands down the darkest arc by far. But again, this arc has been one of the darker, like, Hunter x Hunter-esque type of dark arcs in Shonen Jump history, honestly. Like, I thought Hunter x Hunter was dark, and it is, but the difference between Hunter x Hunter and this is that Hunter x Hunter is almost, you feel completely like you're in a fantasy world most of the time, minus like York New or whatever. With this one, it was a very personal, small, domestic situation that transpired into a what feels like real life serial killer. And if you think about it, the manipulation goes so deep that when Shigaraki says, everything that he was doing, he just felt as though he's always going to be forgiven, was because at that particular point, he's looking at All For One as a mentor, damn near a god, if you think about it, in his eyes, because he already forgave him and made him feel great about, like, yo, I just murdered my family, I murdered a couple of dudes, and you still forgiving me. That's going to give somebody an even further worse perspective on how to be as a person. And then, when he showed up with all the hands on him and everything, All For One is hands down the main villain of all this. Shigaraki is just like going to slowly but surely open up his eyes, and he is a sick and sadistic person. Let's not get it twisted. I don't see any turning a new leaf, but whenever he does do something good, again, it's going to be solely because of All For One. It'll be out of vengeance and destruction of the person that turned him into the psycho monster that he ultimately becomes. And thankfully, we finished this very, very dark, which I don't even want to say thankfully, because it was very insightful into this character's mind and how he became the nut job that he is. But we finished the backstory, so we finally getting progression again. Giganto Machia is just about to show up, but Shigaraki, I think it would be interesting if Shigaraki is able to take out Destro without Giganto Machia, because if you think about it, if he does it on his own, Giganto Machia will probably respect him even more. And it looks like he possibly can. At the end of the chapter, he starts breaking the hands and saying, I don't need them anymore. I kind of got my conviction. I got my purpose back. I am a destroyer. I'm going to show you, my friend, how I destroy. So I think that's my theory. I think right then and there, he'll defeat Destro. Giganto Machia will show up, and then it'll be like, oh, I bow to you. You are my new master. So it's going to be interesting to see. Honestly, I am really, really curious of what you guys' perspective of all of this arc in general, this mini arc of Shigaraki's self-discovery of the monster that he feels he is and he's become. Personally, again, I feel as though this chapter demonstrated 1,000% that mainly it's all society but definitely All For One's manipulation that turned him into this. And I think we will see this won't be the end of getting insight into this. I think Shigaraki is going to come at All For One at some given point, and I'm looking forward to that time. But I'm curious what you guys think. Is this one of the darkest things you've seen in Shonen Jump, this whole saga of Shigaraki's true backstory? Also, do you feel as though there's a possibility that All For One had intercepted even before he came out and reached his hand out? Do you think maybe he gave Shigaraki that quirk and the itchiness was something totally different? Who knows? Maybe he would have had just like a I itch and I become strong quirk, but All For One came in and said, no, you're Nana's grandson. You have a strong conviction. Do you guys think as well, and I know I'm cutting myself off, but do you think there's a possibility that Shigaraki could have been probably the biggest threat to All For One and his convictions and everything, simply because look how much it took. He had just murdered his family, got jumped and everything, and he still was skeptical and anxious of doing anything bad. It took a monster being in his head, taking his memories, or making him traumatized to the point of losing his memories for him to become what he is today. And your overall thoughts and expectations for the finale of Shigaraki and, League of Villains versus Destro and this whole political group. This has been a phenomenal arc. This is probably, well, for me, this was the best chapter of this week, but also this has been a very insightful look into the My Hero Academia's villains. For better or worse, at the very least, this man has come to grips with his convictions of what he wants to do in life, and it's sadly to destroy. But that's all I have for this one, though. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you liked anything I had to say or enjoyed the video, drop me a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you want more from me, make sure to subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram. Hit that bell to get all notifications. And if you want to follow any of my other social media, links, of course, in the description below. I'm ForneverWorld. And as always, people, have an awesome day. And remember the golden rule. Anime and manga for life, boy. Bow. Have an awesome day. Can't forget the music though. Hold on, let me play y'all a little something. Paper rules, if you heard it, best believe that. For now it's whatever. One day I'll be your favorite for never. No matter how you